wasn't live yet. Hello. Hi, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I was running after my kids to put them down for a nap, and I had to set up my new setup here. So I hope you guys can see me and I hope you guys can hear me. Let me know if you can't hear anything I'm saying. Say, can you hear me? Because I'm wearing my AirPods, so hopefully you can hear me through that. If not, then we may have to take the AirPods out. So let me know that. And there's going to be a delay because I'm watching myself on the screen and I'm noticing I'm talking, and then like 2 seconds later, then you guys see what I'm doing. And I'm just waiting for comments to see if you guys can hear me or anything like that. You can hear me? Okay, great. Yay. Perfect. It's working. I have a whole new setup here. Where's my phone? Oh, I gotta take a picture because it's a whole different setup that I have here. Usually I'm on my phone, but this time I was able to set up with my camera and stuff like that. It's laggy. You hear me? Yeah, it is. It's probably going to be laggy because this is something new. Okay, Trey, thank you. I see that you're writing it's laggy. You don't have to berate my comments several times. I see it. Thank you, Trey. Okay, perfect. I got to just take a quick photo of what I'm working with here because I did this all by myself and I'm kind of proud. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started in the class. And if people come and chime in, that's cool. But I'm going to let you guys know a couple things. Because this is a new setup, I'm on my actual camera that I normally film with. And it's not like perfect right now, but it's a new start. And so in about probably 30 minutes, I got about 30 minutes or so with the battery life on this. And that means at some point it's going to start dying, which I will let you guys know, like, oh, it's still going to die. And the screen is going to turn black. And that's only because I'm going to switch out the battery if the class hasn't ended yet. So I just want to start that off with let you guys know that. So when it does go black and people who haven't heard this announcement, some of you will say, hey, just stay here. She's just going to pop a new battery in the camera. Because I have now purchased a new battery that will be a continuous power source, but that won't be here until the end of the month. So I just want to let you guys all know that first. And now let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Jelena with More Cake Gets My Badass Edible Art. And I have been doing caking with Corona since we've all been kind of like on lockdown and quarantine. And I thought today would be a perfect day to kind of go live and do a a little bit of class. So yes, we're gonna do a Waferpaper class, and I'm gonna teach you guys. And this is great for beginners. If you've never worked with Waferpaper, I'm gonna teach you a really easy beginner way to start with it, and then you guys can start practicing. Sorry, this is really new for me because I'm used to looking at my phone, and I'm actually kind of excited. Okay, so okay. Let me tell you guys some of the things you're going to need. And if you miss anything here, I have linked in the description also a couple of the items that I'm using here, of the ones that I was able to find. Some of the stuff you may have, some of the stuff you may not have. Just also know Amazon's on like a little bit of delayed delivery situation. So there's that. So I have regular scissors. I also have decorative scissors. And there's several different types of decorative scissors that you can use. Just grab the one that you like. I usually use this one that has the broken side of it, but I usually use this one and this one. They're two different type of cutting types, so I'm just going to use one of them. And I have a couple of Petal Dust here. I did link in the description some Petal Dust that you can purchase, but I didn't put the specific one I have because A, I can't remember where I got these from, and B, you may want to use a different color. So I have linked some that are inexpensive in the description. You're also going to need some floral wire. There's different gauges. Gauges means the size of the floral wire. So you want to get anything that may be a 20 or below, because if you go higher, like 22, 23, they start getting thicker. So yeah, so I believe these are 20 gauge floral wire. I also have some toothpicks and I have some stamens. If you don't know what a stamen is, stamens are basically um, what they use on flowers. They're non-edible, but they use them on fake flowers to make the centers of them, and they're usually like on a wire and have like a little ball tip. Can you guys see that? Have a little ball tip on both ends or just one end. So these here have a little white ball end. I normally like to get the ones that are plain white because then I can color them myself. But they also sell different colored ones too. You can get them on. You can get majority of these things at Amazon. You can get them at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, arts and craft stores. Amazon obviously is the go-to place for right now. I have some cutters, some punchers here. I have circle one and a flower one. You can use any size that you want, but the size that I have, this one is a 2.5 inch. I linked below in the description a 2 inch puncher. And this one is a flower one, and this is by EK. I didn't link this one because you can get this at several different places. And when I bought it, it was on clearance at Michael's, I think. So I normally, not Michael's, Hobby Lobby. So I normally look for clearance punchers, um, things that are on sale. Use your 50% off or 40% off coupons, depending on where you're going. Joanne Fabric has some of this stuff too. I would always just buy these on clearance, never pay full price for them because it's outrageous how one of them costs 20 bucks. That's ridiculous. I don't know if Martha Stewart still sells hers, but when they were going on clearance, I purchased a whole bunch of those too. You don't necessarily need punchers to make wafer paper flowers. I use them because it makes it more easier. I also have a set of brushes. They're kind of makeup brushes that I use for caking. And they're just different sizes, but what I prefer is the fluffier one so that way you can get a more even layer when you petal dust your flowers. I have water. I have floral tape. Floral tape comes in different colors. I prefer green because that's the color of the stems normally. I also have brown and white, just depends on what I'm making. Um, you want to invest in all of them. I have it set up because I know sometimes people like to see like where my setup is. So I have it set up in a plastic container and then I have everything divided in here anytime that I want to create wafer paper flowers. And then I also linked below some wafer paper. And funny story is, I said, hey, let me do a free wafer paper class. Didn't check if I had any supplies. But luckily I had some. I normally create all my wafer paper flowers using white wafer paper. Now, you can use any colored wafer paper, but I normally petal dust it and the majority of the time airbrush my flowers. For now, I'm going to just petal dust in this tutorial. Um, so I have white wafer paper, and then I have some colored wafer paper. I have a green one, and I have yellow that we're going to use. See, I already cut out some. The white one, lately, some of the wafer paper seems very thick, and I'm not sure why so thick because it's a little more tougher to kind of get a shape out of it, but I'm going to show you guys an easy way to do that. And this one's much more thinner. It's not as thick. So that's the difference between the two types of wafer paper. And then the one thing I have that maybe some of you may not have, but you can also probably pick this up at Walmart or Amazon. I know they sell them on Amazon, I think, for like $10. I got mine from somebody that gave it to me a while back, but I have a steamer. It's a little hand steamer, and I only use it for wafer paper flowers. So yeah, I have this too, which I have to fill up with water. What else do I have? And I have a paper towel here. So, and I have a dummy cake to stick my flowers in when I'm done. So we're going to make this flower and we're going to make this little flower here. I'm going to show you two different flowers we're going to make. One is a little more advanced, a little more technique has to go into it. And then the second one is much more simpler. So yeah, we're going to petal dust them here and put them all together so that way you'll be ready to stick this in a cake. Okay. Now, the flowers are, I just want to let you guys know, I'm going to give you guys a few tips that will help you along the way when you start with wafer paper. Don't be afraid of it. One, two, it's just paper. It's just paper. it's edible, but nobody's eating it. No, I've never seen someone just take the flowers off my cake and eat it, even though it's edible. Nobody wants that type of texture in their mouth. It's just better that your flowers are edible, so that way, it gives the cake a little bit more of that. Oh, the majority of your cake is edible. So that's all that is. But it's okay if you still use real flowers, and it's okay if you use fake flowers. Whatever floats your boat. I do a little bit of everything. I've actually never used fake flowers, but I don't knock it. I think that's great. Like, if listen, get it done easy. You got your money. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. So with these flowers, what I like about them, especially using white wafer paper, is I'm able to manipulate the paper and color it any way that I want. Um, Maybe next time I'll do a video is definitely coming of me airbrushing with on wafer paper. But the setup, I can only do one thing at a time, and this was the setup for today. But the don't be afraid to bend it back and forth and try to kind of get to know it a little bit. We are going to use some non-edible material on your flowers, and you just have to know that at the end of the day, it's okay to use non-edible material on your flowers as long as it's not on your cake. Because the cake is what you're basically selling. Everything else will be known as a topper, and you are able to put non-edible toppers on your cake as long as it's not like in your cake, or you're telling people like, yes, eat this. No, don't do that. You can also make like regular paper flowers. You don't have to make them edible. So yeah, let me look at the comments because I want to make sure like I'm answering questions and also carrying the class along. What's it? Thanks, Trey. We appreciate you. We do appreciate you, Trey. What else? I'm interested in knowing your setup for Google Live with your camera. Going live with your camera. Oh, I can send you a link on Instagram so that way you can see what I watched. So that way you can see how to set it up. But yeah, so let's get started. I'm going to move the camera down to the board so that way you guys can see what I'm doing down here. Also, again, I'm going to repeat in about 30 minutes. My battery's going to start dying and I'm going to change out the battery. The screen's going to go black, but we're still going to be live, so don't worry about that. And two, all the tools that I'm using are on my Instagram story, but I've also linked the majority of them in the description. If you're not following me on Instagram, please do so. It's at Jelena Simpson. And visit my website if you guys want to see all the other things that I do. I have an HBIC Facebook group, which is a private group, which we do one-on-one mentoring. I teach them business plans. I teach them how to run their cake business. And I teach them, obviously, the art of cake. And I don't know what else I have. Oh, and I have a pricing ebook. If you guys are having difficulties pricing your sweets, I have a pricing ebook that also can be found on my Instagram and on my regular website. I'm going to put that all out the way so I don't have to say it later. All right, let me get some water to fill this up. Great, water. And let me move the camera down. Okay. Cool. Oop, I hit a button. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some water in my steamer. Ooh, I put too much water. And pour some out. Put some water in my steamer and set that off to the side because I'm not gonna need that right now. I'm gonna go ahead and cut up my wafer paper. Now, with your hole puncher, I'm gonna cut up, how many did I need? 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm gonna cut 8 of these with my 2.5 hole puncher, right? And now I got a circle. Let me also know if it's not clear enough for you guys. And with the magic of TV, I've already cut some. Haha. And so now that I have this cut, I'm gonna set these off to the side. You can use an edible marker to kind of trace to get the shape that you're looking for. But we're gonna go ahead and just wing it because that's just an extra thing you're gonna have to purchase, and we don't really want to do that. So the shape you're looking for is pointed at the bottom and kept rounded at the top. Let me know if the screen is blurry because on my end it looks fine, but then I'm looking at the screen over there and it looks a little blurry. So I'm going to choose that this is my bottom here, and I'm going to go ahead and curve one side, flip it around, and do the same thing. Here's my bottom, and I'm curving the other side. So you guys can see that shape that I have here. It's like a fan. Okay. And then now I'm going to go ahead and grab my decorative scissors, and on the rounded top part here, I'm going to cut the top. And this will give your flower that texture that it needs to make it look more floral like. Okay, that scraps, get rid of that. Now at the bottom part down here at the pointed end, we're going to cut a slit in it. All right, so I have a little slit in it. You see that? Now the further up you go, the more you can get your petal to cup, meaning that the more you can get it rounded, cupped up. So if you do like a little slit, it's only going to fold a little bit. If you do a longer slit, it'll fold even more. So let's go ahead and add some water to it. I added water to one end of my slit, and now I'm just going to fold it under like that. You want to add a little bit of water. You don't need a lot of water. You just need a little bit. And now I'm able to have a rounded petal, okay? These two little teeth down here, I'm going to cut that off so it'll be more smooth. And now I have a finished petal, okay? So I have several of these that I'm going to go ahead and finish up. And now we're going to add some water. And I'm just doing the same thing to all of them. I'm putting water on one side of the slit, and then I'm folding it. The video is good. Thank you, Zolis. Hopefully I'm not pronouncing that incorrectly. Now for these larger petals, I want to have at least, I think I want to have at least 8. Yeah. Cut the teeth off of them. Okay, so what do I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is kind of a tiny one, but we're just going to call that 8. So I have 8 of my larger petals I'm going to put off to the side. Also, let me preference this also by saying, now the flower we're making, I like to call these fantasy flowers. And that's why I say this is perfect for beginners. Because say, for example, your bride sends you pictures of just several different types of flowers, and she doesn't have one specific flower she's going to be using for her wedding or whatever event you're going to be doing. You can create fantasy flowers, which are flowers that are just going to complement your cake and complement the event. At the end of the day, this isn't a flower, this isn't a peony, this isn't a rose. It's going to resemble some of these flowers, but it's not a specific flower because it's not going to be anatomically correct. Is that the correct word? Anatomically correct? Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. So this is a flower that I'm just making up. And it's going to show you as a beginner, you can just make up some flowers and at the end of the day, they're still going to look floral-like. If you want wafer paper flowers that look more realistic, then you should definitely check out my HBIC group where they get tutorials of wafer paper flowers where I do realistic looking ones and give it texture and everything like that. Now, one thing that I didn't add to this tool list, which I apologize for, is you're going to need a hole puncher that's about 1.5 inches so you can have smaller petals, and that's going to give you a smaller circle. Oh no, sorry, this is a 2.5 inch. These must be 3 inches, but it's fine. You just need a smaller one. So you need smaller petals and you need larger ones. It doesn't really matter what size they are. Cut my slit. Do my foo-foo-ness on my flower, my petal. Okay. And then now using my paintbrush, adding water to one side of the slit and then folding. And again, we're going to cut off the teeth, which what I like to call it. And then now we have 3 smaller petals, okay? So we have 8 larger petals and 3 smaller petals. And now, if you guys can see that, I have a wire attached to this one already. So I'm going to show you guys how I can attach wires to all of these petals. I'm going to put these 2 off to the side, get rid of this, and yeah. So what you're going to need to attach the wire to your flowers, you're going to need your wire, some wafer paper cut into strips, and you're going to need some water. Now, a little bit of water goes a long way with wafer paper. Too much water will make your wafer paper start to dissolve, and we don't want that. If you don't know what wafer paper is made out of, it's just made out of cornstarch, potato starch. There we go, potato starch. I'm saying corn, that's completely wrong. Out of potato starch. So what I'm going to do is add some water to my strip, and I want to completely cover it with water. Now this is thicker wafer paper, so it's going to take a lot more water to get it to start dissolving. But you got to be careful which one you start using between the thin wafer paper and the thicker wafer paper. Now I'm going to take my wire and stick it to my, I'm going to have to do it in my hand so that way you guys can see better. Stick it to my strip of wafer paper. My strip of wafer paper. See, so now it's stuck because water acts as an adhesive, like a glue. So now it's stuck on there. I'm going to take my petal. Now this is the bottom of my petal, and where the slit is, right there, I'm going to lay this on top of that slit, just like so. And I'm going to push down, adhering the slit of paper to my actual wafer paper in the part that I cut in the middle, sandwiching my wire in between the 2 papers. Now, if your paper hangs over the end of your petal, just go ahead and cut it off. No biggie. Okay. Boom. And now it's stuck on there. And the great thing about this is that I'm able to bend my petal back if I want to, pull it more up if I want to. Now, obviously, you're going to want to wait till this dries a little bit. It dries quickly, so you just put it off to the side for maybe a good 5 minutes, and it'll dry. And then you want to move, you can move it around if you want to and manipulate the paper. So I'm going to put this off to the side and now do the rest. Same thing again, adding water to my paper. Just adding more water where it's not sticking. Again, you want to be careful. Every time I taught people how to do this, they end up using, the one thing they end up doing is using way too much water. So always have a napkin off to the side so you can clean off your paintbrush. And I would say treat this like an assembly line. Cut all your wafer paper petals, cut all your little rectangle slits, get your wire ready. So that way, once you got it all cut up and all the petals are made, then you can just do exactly what I'm doing. Kind of like an assembly line. Okay. I started doing wafer paper flowers maybe about 4 years ago because I found out there was a way to create flowers to look the way I want them to look, whether if I want it to be more fantasy or realistic. And I thought that could be fun. Also, anytime I created real flowers, not real flowers, but anytime I created sugar flowers with fondant or gum paste, I had to wait like overnight for certain parts of it to dry. And I know you guys heard me say this several times before, but I'm like, hey, let's get this over with. Let's just get it over with. Like, I don't want to have to sit here and wait days for petals to dry so I can assemble them. I don't want to have to do all that. And then if the petal gets too soft, it may, start falling down. And then also, fondant is really heavy and gum paste is really heavy. And I didn't want to have to deal with the fact that my flower would be really heavy. So I thought this was a perfect alternative to making something to look the way that I wanted it to look. And then also, it was lightweight and I didn't have issues with the flowers falling down or being too heavy or having to wait for it to dry. So this can be a really great alternative. And then also, you don't have to worry about all of those, well, I don't want to stick real flowers in a cake and have to manage that situation. Okay. Just got two more and then I finished it. There we go. Okay, and my last one, which is my tiny one. Now your strip doesn't have to be super thick and super long. These are all not even the same size. I just cut one long piece of paper and then cut little rectangles out of it. Okay. I do know that some people create wafer paper flowers by they double up on the petal. And instead of doing the rectangle slit, they double up on the petal instead. And I don't like to do that because it wastes too much paper. I rather just do a little rectangle slit. Okay, so now let me get rid of what I don't need. Throw all this away. Alrighty, so now I'm gonna go ahead and grab my petal dust. So you can do this one or two ways. You can go ahead and petal dust this now, or you can petal dust it after assembly. I'm going to go ahead and petal dust this now, and then we will assemble. Alrighty, so because I have an actual cake that I need to use these on, I'm going to use the colors that my cake will be. So I have like a mustard colored here. I also have a, I don't want to say lavender, more of a purplish, purple tone. Okay, come out. Okay. And then I also have, this is called Purple Heather. It's more violet light. Okay. Cool. So we have these done. And now I'm going to go ahead and just grab my petals and a brush. What I like to do is I like to put a darker color at the bottom for this, and then ombre it up to a lighter color. Have any of you ever made wafer paper flowers, or is this your first time going to actually try? Make sure you get the back of it. Sometimes you can see the flowers from the back. So I just like to give a little bit of a color. First time? All right, so now I've colored it. Right? And I'm going to do that to all the petals now. But I'm going to try my hardest to do it as quickly as possible so it's not just me coloring petals. Put a little dark at the bottom. This is the part where it can be really fun because you can color these whatever you want. And the reason why I like using these fluffier brushes is because you get a more even color. Because if you use the thinner ones, then you'll see each stroke. Made them before, but with no wire. Good to know with wire. Yeah. I used to do the same thing. I used to make them with no wire until I had several flowers that I needed to make into a bouquet. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to get this done? Did I get the back of this one? Yeah, yeah. Oh, did I miss one? I think I missed one. That's okay. I'll go back and put it on later. And after I finish coloring these, I'm going to show you guys how to use the stamens and attach those. And the fun thing about stamens is those two you can color any way you want if you just get the plain white ones. When I started out Waferpaper flowers, I started with Petal Dust because I wasn't really familiar on how to use an airbrush correctly. And now I only ever airbrush them because it's so much more easier. I remember when I saw somebody use an airbrush on a cake once and I almost lost it. I was like, wait, I don't ever have to color fond it again? But that's a misconception because airbrush coloring can be very uneven, so you want to be careful with that too. So that's why I only ever use it on my flowers. Okay. I'm just coloring the back and the front of them. And I'm also, I don't know if you guys noticed why I was doing this. I keep tapping on the edge here just to make those edges a little more darker. More detail means more realistic. Wipe my hands off on my wet napkin. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do this last one, which I didn't do. Cut a little slit in my paper. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna set this off to the side to dry before I start putting petal dust on it. All right, let's move that over. So now with the stamens, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a couple of these stamens. Do we need a special brush? No, you don't need a special brush. I mean, I have several different brushes here, different paint brushes. You can go and buy cheap brushes from Michael's Arts and Craft or Hobby Lobby or whatever arts and craft store, even Walmart. Just try to make sure you can make them funky looking. Like you can even use the fan brush if you want to. You don't need a specific brush. I would just say make sure you use one that has a lot of bristles on it and is more wide. So there's not one specific brush you need. I just personally like using the makeup brushes. I think they're called blush brushes. I don't know. I don't wear makeup, but blush brushes. Um, so yeah, I like to use those because they give a more evenness to it. But I say invest in all different types of brushes because you never know what you're going to need. Okay, so I have a bunch of stamens here in my hand, just a few. And I'm going to take my wire. Hi, China. I'm going to go ahead and take my wire. Sorry, I'm reading comments. Does it get darker the longer the petal dust is sitting on the petal? It does get darker, or you can just continuously make it darker. I'm looking for dark colors just touching it. I didn't want to color the whole thing in purple. But the things you can do is color your wafer paper way before you actually cut your paper up. So you can color your paper or you can airbrush your paper or even just hand paint it with edible paint. You can do that too to make the colors darker if you want to. So you're going to go ahead and grab your stamens. So this is the center of my stamen here. I have a wire also, and I'm going to wrap the wire around the center like that, right? So I got my wire wrapped around my center of my stamens, and then I'm going to pull all my stamens up the bushel together. And then with my wire, I'm going to twist it. So we're just basically putting our stamens on a wire, okay? So that's what it should look like. And now I'm going to grab my floral tape. If you've never used floral tape before, floral tape is basically what you have to do to get the adhesive active is when you touch it, it doesn't feel sticky. But then when you stretch it, that's where the stickiness happens. So now a little bit above the wire on my stamens, I'm going to begin wrapping this. Okay. So you see where my stamens are? You see where my wire is, and you also see where my tape is starting. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this really tightly, and you have to do it tightly in order to keep the tape to stick to itself and to stick to the surface you want it to stick to. And as I'm wrapping, I'm twisting the stamens that are attached to the wire. I'm twisting it around so that way now my floral tape goes all the way down. And it's overlapping itself. And if I have too much, I tend to go right back up again and just go all the way, and then it'll stick. So now it looks like this. And now my stamens are nice and still. So because my stamens are the type of flower I want to do, this fantasy flower, I want to kind of make them scraggly like, so I'm just going to push down on them, right? And you can color these if you want to. I'm going to color these with that mustard yellow that I have here. So I'm just going to grab a different paintbrush or a different makeup brush, put a little bit of that mustard on, and I'm just going to go to town on them. Have them have a yellow mustard color. You can airbrush these as well. I sometimes, depending on what kind of cake it is, I put glitter on it. And the way I do that, I just use like a gel adhesive, edible gel adhesive, and like you can use piping gel and put it on and then dip it in some glitter. And that's fine too, because remember, these are toppers, decorative toppers for your cake. Okay, so now I have yellow stamens. Cool. They also sell yellow stamens if you don't want to. Oh, let me do this last petal. $10, Fenty. Thank you, Fenty. I appreciate that. Thank you. Hi, Green Meadow. I appreciate you oh so much, Fenty. That was really nice of you. Just dropped me $10 in the super chat. That will help me pay for some of the supplies. You are a nice person, I promise. Thank you. Okay, color that one. Cool. You know it's serious when you make your husband drive so you can tune in unbothered by her. I'm like, that's okay, Cake Life. Hey, girl. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and assemble this flower, but I'm going to get all of this out the way so you guys can focus. Move that off to the side. Now, what you want to make sure that you have is obviously your petals, your stamen, and you want to have your floral tape, and you want to have your toothpick. Let me grab me a toothpick. Okay, and you want to have a toothpick. Just kind of clean this up a little bit so that way there's no dust everywhere. Okay. And before I forget, let me turn on my steamer. Hopefully it doesn't come spewing out. Sometimes it does that. It's an old steamer. I've had it for a while. So I just turn it on. It's going to take a while. If you guys have never used a steamer before, it takes a while for the water to get all heated up. Okay. So what I'm going to do with the steamer is I'm actually going to steam my petals, because what it's going to help with is keep the petal dust stable on your flowers, so that way when you touch it, you don't get petal dust all on you. Again, when you go to insert them in the cake. And also it tends to give it a little bit of a shine, just depending on which petal dust you put on. And also it can also shape your wafer paper. So the steam is going, I don't know if you guys can see it on camera, but I'm just going to sit this in the steam. So it allows you to shape your wafer paper flower also. So if you want your wafer paper flower to have movement to it, definitely invest in a steamer. It helps. I know someone once asked me, oh, can I just steam water over my stove? Yeah, you can do that too. But I just find this to be so much more easier. So I'm working in my cake area and not have to worry about moving around. The longer your wafer paper sits in the steamer, the more it will start to take shape and start to make its own movement. But I'm just putting these in for a couple of seconds. And remember, steam is water. It's just air, water. It's what's happening. So you don't want it to sit too long because you can damage your petal and your petal can start to disintegrate. We don't want that either. So what my steamer does is it blows for a couple of minutes, well, for a couple of seconds, and then it stops and then it starts blowing again. So give it a second. It's going to blow again. After this, I will see if I can find this exact steamer. They come in different colors on Amazon, and I'll put it in the description also. Hey, Jelena, I have a question. Yes, about your last live class with the modeling chocolate because I tuned in too late. Can you use the modeling chocolate interchangeably as you would fondant? Meaning what? Like, can you cover a cake with modeling chocolate? Yes, you can cover a cake with modeling chocolate. Can you make toppers with modeling chocolate rather than with fondant? Yes, that too. My modeling chocolate is 50% modeling chocolate, and then I take another 50% of fondant, which is basically one-on-one ratio, excuse me, and I mix the two together. So that way my modeling chocolate has some elasticity to it. So I don't know if you guys can tell how this one is starting to bend backwards a little bit. Let's see if I can do two at a time. Oh, nice steamer. Oh, thank you. Someone gifted it to me. You're welcome. So you see this assembly line I did? I cut my petals. I had my strip rectangles cut out already. I put together my petals, added my wire, and now I colored my petals. And then after I color, I steam my petals. And then we're gonna assemble. So this is such an easy way to do flowers. You don't have the stress of going, it doesn't look like a rose. It doesn't have to look exactly like a rose. It can just resemble a rose. That's the fun thing about fantasy flowers. You don't have to worry that it's not anatomically correct and not every petal is shaped the correct way. You don't have a steamer, what can you use? You can completely skip the steaming section of this whole class if you want to. I would say if you want the effect of being able to make your, what are we using? Wafer paper. I was about to say fondant. Make your wafer paper have some shape and movement. I would say invest in a steamer. Other than that, you can definitely put a pot in the stove and boil some water and go on top of that. But I like the flow of a steamer. It goes in one direction. It's hitting directly on my flower. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and assemble. So I have my larger petals over here. I'm going to separate them. So I should have 8 large petals and 3 tiny little petals. Okay, so those are my larger ones, and these are my 3 little ones. And here are my stamens. So I have my stamens, which will be my center. Make sure you guys are, okay. I have my stamens, which will be my center. And then with my petals, I'm gonna just pull my petal back a little bit. You see how I'm pinching the petal right here at the bottom, in the front and the bottom of the back? I'm pinching it in order to bend it backwards. Same thing with all the other ones. I'm just gonna bend it backwards real quick, very gently. And obviously you wanna wait till everything is dry. You don't wanna do this while they're wet. And now what I'm doing, I can clearly see where my stamens start and where my petal starts, okay? I want them to match up together, and I'm gonna go ahead and take another petal. I don't care about overlapping. I don't care about that right now. I just wanna get them on there, and I'm gonna grab the other one, okay? And now I'm just gonna grab one of the wires and start to twist around everything else. Let me bend this upside down so you guys can see. So I just took one wire and I twisted it around all the rest of the wires. So that way everything now stays together, right? Now, I like to wait till the very end to assemble my petals where I want them to sit at, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and just grab the rest of the petals. So I started with 3. You always wanna start your first row with an odd number and continue on with odd numbers. But remember, you're going in rows. So this is my first row of 3. My next row is going to be a row of 3 also. But we're gonna adjust it later when we assemble it. We're gonna adjust it to make sure we go one petal will go here in the middle of these 2, another petal in the middle of these 2, and so forth and so on. My third row is going to be a row of 5. I only work with odd numbers when it comes to petals. So that way they can always flip flop, like I said. So I have these 2 petals and then one in the middle. These 2 petals and one in the middle. So I'm going to grab my other one, my larger petals now. I'm going to bend this back. I'm going to keep bending all of these back. Also, the great thing about these is you can make these weeks, days in advance. Just have a bunch of petals laying around until you're ready to use them on any one of your cakes. With fondant, that's a little more tricky because you obviously don't want the fondant sitting for too long. It starts to discolor. I gotta add a little bit of water there. Okay, did I bend them all back? I did. Alrighty. So now let me grab my first petal, my first large petal, and I'm just gonna put it here in the center, in the middle. You see these 2 petals? I got that one in the middle, and I'm gonna grab another one and do the same thing. It's okay if they start to move. That's fine. So remember, I'm only doing 3. So now I'm gonna flip this upside down. I'm gonna grab one of the wires, and I'm gonna twist all around nice and tight. Okay? I finished my second row. Now my last row is a row of 5. So do the same thing again. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to stop at 3 real quick and just twist this. I'm still on the same row though. Remember, it's going to be 5 petals for the last row. That was 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm a person who likes to raise a bunch of free thinkers. You don't have to use odd number of petals. It just helps better with visually. Um, you can use as many petals as you want. You can make this flower even more bigger. But I would say the more bigger you go, the bigger your petal has to get. Okay, so that way it can cup the whole flower. So just know I think there's like a 1.5 inch circle, and then I go out to 2.5 inch circle here. And my next one, if I were to make this bigger, would probably be like a 3 inch or a 3.5 circle cutter. And then I don't have anything bigger than a 3 inch. So then I would have to just manually cut my circles. So now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead again, pinching the bottom of each petal and putting it where I want it to be at. So I'm going to lift these up a little bit, the center part, and try to get them to overlap like that. You see how they kind of overlap each other? And now I'm going to do the same thing for the next row, lifting it up, which should be 3. I definitely didn't sit these in the steamer long enough because my hands got petal dust on them. Okay, I'm just pulling them up. And you want to be careful because, yeah, even though that you've secured this enough, sometimes your flower can still rip. So you just want to take your time with it. And just like how I said before with the modeling chocolate and fondant and things like that, the way that you get better and better at doing this is you have to practice. If you don't practice, then you're going to be practicing on real cakes and you don't want to do that. So you want to take your time. Okay, let me see what the questions, because I see something moving over here. Sorry again, I tuned in late. What kind of wire is this? Floral? Yes, this is floral wire. This is a 20 gauge floral wire. Oh, wow. Is that wafer paper to the center of the flowers? The center of the flowers is called a stamen. If you want any of the tools or want to know what tools I use, I have it on my Instagram Insta story. And I also have it in the description here on this video. If you don't know what my Instagram is, it's at Jelena Simpson, but it's also in the description here. What gauge wire is the best to use? I like using 20 gauge, but I have a plethora of different wire thicknesses and thinness. So it just depends on what you're making and how sturdy you want your wire to be. This is my favorite wire to use because it's more easier to move around and manipulate. But I have several different wires. This wire so happens to already be this size. See the length? But there's wire that comes longer than this, so you may want to get wire cutters also. So that way you can cut your wire. And this is my wire cutters that I use. You can get them from like a tool store. And I also have little like wire pliers that I can move my wire around with. So I have these two things in my toolbox also. All right, so thank you. I was late coming in. Not a problem. No worries. Can we do a leaf? Well, I'm not going to do a leaf in this video, in this live class, but yeah, leaves can be done too. I do leaves all the time. So yeah, and then this is this flower. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I'm not done yet. I want to make sure I finish this off. So I grab some floral tape. Again, to make it sticky, you stretch it. I like to do this upside down because it's easier so I can see what I'm doing. You want to get as close to the bottom of all the petals as you can with your floral tape. And you want to start twisting. And we're going to cover up all of this wire because the wire is ugly to look at. And yeah, we don't really want to look at that. I'm just going all the way down. Now, if you don't have floral cutters, what I would like to do is cut all of this floral wire so it can be nice and even. But I'm not even going to do that because you may not even have these at home. I'm just going to leave it as is, but I'm going to bend the bottom up so that way it's not pointy at the bottom. You see, all like there's several different wires and they're all different lengths. So I'm just going to bend it up. So now it looks like that. And now I'm going to keep going with the floral tape, covering. Now, if you're doing a dummy cake, I suggest you get a toothpick. You place it down at the bottom of your wire, just like so, and you use your floral tape and wrap it around with it. So that way, it's easier to stick this in a dummy cake, right? So it looks like that. It has a little sharp part that you can push down. I only typically do that when I do dummy cakes. If it's a real cake, you don't really need the toothpick. You don't really need that. But for dummy cakes, we're gonna stick that in there. And then I have my dummy cake so I can have it stand up, and I'm gonna place it in there. You can see more on the first one I did how more bent this one is, and that's because of the steamer. It bent it more. The paper started to curl up a little bit. So now we're going to create this flower, which is so much more easier. I'm going to go ahead and grab this puncher. And I'm going to cut out 4 of the flowers. And this is much more easier because one, we don't have to create each petal. The flower is already made. So that's why I say it's great to invest in these punchers because a lot of people call these filler flowers. And if you don't know what a filler flower is, it's just a nickname given to the smaller flowers that fill up the bouquet. So that way there's no gaps in between the larger flowers. So what I'm going to create is a filler flower. And again, I normally don't use colored wafer paper, but this time we're going to go ahead and use it just so I can show you guys that even with colored wafer paper, you can still get a nice looking flower. Okay. How many did I got 4? Cool. And now I'm going to get a wire. And I have my water. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bend my wire. So it's like a little bit of an L shape. Oh, let's go that way. You see that little L shape? Just gonna bend it into an L. And I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in the center of this flower. So that way it comes out like that, right? We want the wire up against the flower like that. I'm gonna add some water in the center. And now I'm going to sandwich together by, oh, I don't want to poke it. We're going to sandwich together another petal on top of it. And this will help kind of keep the wire stuck in there. So just sandwiched it on top. I'm going to put another one on top of this one. And on the bottom, I'm going to add another one because I want to make sure that wire stays in place. I'm going to add some water, just a little bit. You just want to add a little bit. This particular wafer paper here is a little more thinner than the white one. So you want to be careful about the amount of water you use. Just going to push down. Okay. So that's what it looks like. Now, you can definitely leave it like this if that's the way that you want your flower to look, or we can use our steamer and give it a little more shape. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of water. You want to be careful with your steamers because that water is hot. There's steam actually coming out the top of this right now. Yeah, just need a little bit. And just to give it some color in the center, I'm going to go ahead and just grab one of my brushes, grab this dark petal dust here, and then just kind of lightly dab in the middle. Okay. Alrighty. Normally I let this sit for me to steam it because it's still wet, but we're gonna go ahead and keep going. The steamer is going, and we're gonna start shaping this flower when the steam comes out. Sorry, it takes a while for the steam to come out. Okay, there it goes. Steam is coming out. I'll try to get into the camera view here. So I'm gonna let it hit. And with my other hand, I'm gonna start pushing the petals this way. Well, I can't really do it that way. Let's do it with one hand so that way you guys can see in the camera. I'm just pushing some petals to shape it. You got to keep the flower moving or else the petals will stick to themselves, your hand will stick to the petal because of the moisture. You have that happen? But I'm going to go a little more in the steam. Sorry, you guys can't see this. It's off camera. All right, let me turn that off. See, now I was able to shape the flower, which I think is just super simple and super pretty, right? Like, how easy was that? How super easy that was. Did she answer the question about the floral tape being food safe? I had to step out. Oh, okay, so let me get to that too. Let me just go ahead and stick this in here. So floral tape is not food safe. So what you want to do when it comes to real cakes, you can do several things. One, where's my flower? Oh, here it is. One thing that you can do is you can actually wrap the floral tape around with plastic wrap. There is a food safe way to, it's, I don't know what the dip is called, I can't remember, but it's always so hard to purchase. Like only one company sells it. You dip the end of your wire in it and it covers it, and that's supposed to be some food safe something. I can't remember the name of it, so I can't even tell you guys, but it ends up getting nice and stiff and it covers your wires up, and you can actually stick that into cake. I've actually never used it. I've only seen people use. I've only seen it on like videos and seen other people use it. But I always use floral tape, and then for a real cake, I'll stick like plastic wrap around this, or you can actually use bobo straws and stick your flower in a bobo straw, and if the bobo straw is in your cake. So there's double way to use it. Also, another thing that I do with real flowers is, if you guys seen some of my videos, I pile up a bunch of buttercream on the outside of the cake, and I stick that flower in that buttercream. And so that way the flower is not inserted into the cake itself, just some outside buttercream. So yeah, so those are the things that I do when it comes to using non-edible items to insert into a cake. Hopefully that helps, yeah. But I just use tape for adhesive purposes so I can get everything stuck together. So yeah, that was it. Look how that was so simple. I don't even know how long the class has been. How long have we been here? It doesn't tell me. It won't tell me until I hit the end button. Oh, we've been here for an hour. Oh, but that's because I was talking. But it wasn't that hard. This one was really easy to make. They have so many different cutters in different shapes that you can use. I definitely say, if you're going to go wafer paper route of making flowers, invest in circle cutters. Those are my friends. I have a whole giant container of different size circle cutters. If you ever taken a wafer paper class from me, you've seen me take it, bring it to the class. Um, Using actual shaped flowers, I don't normally do, but it just really depends on what it is. Like I have other ones that have like vines on it, which is really fun to use, but I typically just stick to my circle cutter ones. Some people dip the wire in chocolate. Oh my God, that's such a good idea. Holy crap. Hold on, let me move the camera up. I didn't even think of that. White chocolate, dark chocolate. That is such a good idea. Sorry, guys. Moving the camera. There's no camera guy. It's just me. So I gotta do this myself. That is such a good idea to actually use chocolate. So smart. People are such geniuses. And see, that's why it's good to share, because I actually, as long as I've been caking, I never thought of dipping it into chocolate. But I'm gonna do that. That is such a smart idea. But yeah, and then that would save me on actually having to purchase plastic wrap all the time. Genius. Thank you for that one. I appreciate it. Miracle, Miracle Taz. I'm going to say it's Miracle Taz. Hopefully that's what it is. So I hope you guys actually got some good tips on how to make some fantasy wafer paper flowers. And hopefully you guys will start doing this on your own. Again, I linked below the wafer paper I use. I linked below a couple of the tools that I'm using here. So you can definitely check out the description. If you're not following me on Instagram, go to my Instagram, follow me. It's at Jelena Simpson. If you haven't checked out my website, you can go to morecakeym.com. You can see on my Instagram and on my website when I post more classes. If you don't know what I do on a daily basis when I'm not putting out tutorials, I actually have a Facebook group. It's called HBIC. It's about head bakers in charge, but we really know what the B stands for. At the end of the day, I'm helping women push their businesses. And last month we talked about business plans. This month we'll be talking about logos and websites, and still talking about business plans. I just put out a pricing ebook. If you're interested in learning how to price your cakes and price your sweets, definitely check out my pricing ebook. It has a follow along video that goes with it if you want to add that on. Again, that's on my website. So yeah, so FYI, the Facebook group, it is a monthly payment for it, because you're getting one-on-one mentorship, and I keep the group fairly small. So you definitely want to check that out. And if you're not following me here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit notification bell, and please hit the like button. Please, that would be great, because by you hitting the like button, that means it's going to pop up in your feed, which means it's going to pop up in other people's feeds that follow you. And so that kind of helps along with the algorithm of people seeing this video and any other videos that I do. Oh, and the other thing, I do have realistic wafer paper flower tutorials. That's for my HVIC group. I may do another tutorial sale at the end of the month where I do a bundle sale and I sell a bunch of my tutorials for like $10 or something for the whole bunch. So be on the lookout for that. But if you want to get access to it, be a part of my HVAC group. You can also get access to the pricing ebook if you're a part of the HVAC group too. They get access to everything. And we do one-on-ones together, we do video chats, all of those things. So yeah, thank you for joining as I created some fantasy flowers. You guys will hopefully see this cake sometime next week of that I will be using these flowers on. Uh, I appreciate y'all so much. And look at that, I haven't ran out of battery life yet, and it's been an hour, so that's good. I'm gonna read some comments. Yeah, the videos stay in her YouTube. Yeah. Oh, did somebody ask if there's gonna be a replay? Yeah, this video is gonna stay up forever and ever and ever. Will this video be available? Okay, I'm working from home and have so many bits. Yes. Love the class. Thanks so much. Thinking of going to Amazon now. Definitely check out the links in my bio. They're there for you guys. You're welcome. Yes, that's how you say it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate all of you. Mwah. Thank you so much for coming on live. I'm sorry if the video quality wasn't great. This is my first time trying it out on my video camera, and I'm gonna have to like figure something out because YouTube, I see it over there. It's telling me warning, something about the size of the video. I don't know. I don't know what it's telling me. But hopefully next time it will be even better quality. And then maybe one day I'll be able to have a cameraman sitting here moving the camera around so that way I don't have to do it myself. But thank you all for coming into Caking Through Corona with me. And I hope you all are being safe. Hopefully you're taking it seriously. Gloves, mask, make sure you are just please stay safe. And if you have young people in your family, please tell them to take this seriously because I've been seeing a lot of reports of young people not taking it seriously. Trust me, young people can be affected by this just as hard. And we just need everybody to take it seriously so I can get out of my freaking house. That would be great. So I'll see you guys all later. Bye. Thanks for your time. The video is just fine. Oh, perfect. Thanks. Okay. Bye, everybody.